White man denies first-class seat to black soldier. What she does next leaves everyone shocked. Leah Matthews, an African-American woman in her pristine soldier's uniform, walked confidently through the airport. The emotional weight of returning home after a long military mission mixed with the relief of finally seeing her family again. Her uniform wasn't just clothing, it symbolized Leah's sacrifice, courage, and commitment to her country, even in the face of personal challenges. However, this dignity was quickly confronted when she approached the boarding counter to check her ticket. While waiting in line to board the plane, Leah noticed the stares around her were different. The murmur of voices seemed to grow as she neared the attendant, as if something about her made people uncomfortable. When she presented her ticket, the attendant hesitated, and a well-dressed, haughty-looking man behind her stepped forward, interrupting. "Excuse me, there must be a mistake," the man said, looking from Leah to the attendant. "You're going to let her sit in first class? I don't think that's appropriate." Leah turned to the man, surprised and shocked, not by his words. Prejudice was something she knew well, but by the fact that even in her uniform, the seriousness of her role didn't earn her the respect she deserved. The attendant hesitated, unsure how to react. Leah, however, stayed calm. Her heart was racing, but she knew an impulsive response wouldn't help. Taking a deep breath, she decided not to let the situation pass without reflection. "I've served my country for years. I'm coming home after risking my life to protect the freedoms we all enjoy, including yours," Leah said firmly, looking directly at the man confronting her. He, visibly uncomfortable, crossed his arms and rolled his eyes, as if his indignation was justified. The situation was clear. He believed Leah didn't deserve to be there, not because of her qualifications, but simply because of who she was, a black woman in a prominent and authoritative position. The blatant prejudice was right in front of her. But Leah knew there were two ways to handle this moment: react with anger or respond with the same compassion she had always tried to show during her service. "I paid for my ticket, just like you," Leah continued, maintaining her composure. "And if there's one thing I've learned serving my country, it's that a person's true character isn't measured by where they sit, but by how they treat others." The attendant, who had remained silent until then, looked at Leah with a mix of respect and shame for what was happening. He realized the situation had escalated beyond a simple seating issue. With a nod, he indicated that Leah could board in first class, as her ticket indicated. However, the man who confronted her, still in denial, muttered, "This isn't right. Someone like her doesn't belong here." Those words, loaded with prejudice, echoed in the air for a brief moment. The ensuing silence was deafening, but Leah, staying calm and firm, didn't let it shake her. Something more important was at stake here, something bigger than simply getting a seat in first class. Leah knew anger could easily take over, but that would only reinforce the stereotypes the man held. Instead, she focused on her greater goal: overcoming adversity with grace and showing the world, or at least those around her, that prejudice only has power over those who give it attention. "I'm not here to fight with you," Leah said, turning once more to the man. "I'm here to show we can be better, to remind us all that everyone has value, no matter where they come from or what they look like." The man, still unconvinced, didn't respond. He just turned his back and returned to his place in line, while Leah moved toward the boarding gate, feeling the weight of the moment but not letting it bring her down. This first battle against prejudice might have ended there, but for Leah, it was just the beginning of a series of challenges she would face during that flight. However, she was prepared. The resilience she had developed over years of military service, along with her unwavering faith in human dignity, would be her guide. Leah took her seat on the aircraft, in first class, but the tension in the air was still palpable. She knew the next few hours would bring more surprises, but she was ready to face each one with the same strength and compassion that had brought her this far. When Leah settled into her first-class seat, she could feel the weight of suspicious glances around her. The tension was palpable. It wasn't unusual for her to be the target of curious looks, but this time, the hostility was obvious. She knew the incident at the gate had drawn attention. The passengers closest to her, who had previously been absorbed in their own activities, were now watching the scene with barely concealed interest. Some whispered, others shot quick glances, and Leah could sense that the prejudice she had faced wasn't just from that one man. David Reynolds, the man who had questioned Leah's presence in first class, approached her seat. His expression still radiated a mix of arrogance and discomfort, as if confused that his initial attitude hadn't produced the desired outcome. He stopped beside her, hesitating for a moment, as if deciding whether to continue the confrontation or let the situation die down. But instead of words, Leah was met with a heavy, loaded silence. He looked at her with a mix of curiosity and something that almost seemed like shame. It was as if, for the first time, he was beginning to question his own motives. This was the first sign of an internal shift, though still very subtle. Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Write KFC in the comments. Only those who get this far will understand. Now let's get back to the story. The flight continued with a smooth takeoff, but the tension between Leah and David didn't go away. Instead, it seemed to linger in the air like an invisible shadow. Leah wasn't someone who allowed herself to be easily intimidated, but the negative energy around her was exhausting. She could feel the discomfort of the people around her, as if her very presence there was something that needed to be corrected. Just being in that seat, occupying a space many believed wasn't hers by right, was a silent act of resistance. However, Leah knew that confronting David with anger or resentment wouldn't solve anything. At that moment, her only weapon was her dignity. She kept her head high, determined to show that her place there was just as legitimate as anyone else's. Deep down, she knew that the battle she was fighting wasn't just her own. It was the fight of all those who, like her, had been marginalized by a society still struggling to fully embrace equality. Shortly after the flight began, the flight attendant started serving meals in first class. When she reached Leah and David's row, Leah noticed the attendant hesitated briefly before handing her meal. It was subtle, but just enough for Leah to catch it. Even the smallest gestures, she knew, carried weight. But Leah, always aware of these nuances, responded with a polite smile, refusing to let it shake her inner peace. As she began to eat, David glanced sideways, clearly uncomfortable. He opened his mouth as if to say something but stopped. Leah, however, sensed that something was about to emerge. David wasn't just irritated, he was internally conflicted, struggling with something deeper than his simple resistance to Leah's presence in that space. Something was changing in him, even if he couldn't quite see it yet. Leah, taking advantage of the tense silence, decided to make the first move. She knew that if there was any chance of breaking the cycle of prejudice, someone had to take the first step, and at that moment, that someone was her. "You seem to have something on your mind," Leah said, her voice soft but firm. She knew that word choice was crucial. This wasn't about confronting him with accusations, but about opening the door for dialogue. David looked at her, clearly caught off guard by her direct approach. He hesitated, his expression shifting between restrained anger and confusion. After a moment, he finally spoke. "I don't think you should be here," he admitted, but his voice was now quieter, less aggressive than before. Leah held his gaze, without a trace of judgment. "Why?" she asked with disarming simplicity. David hesitated again, as if unsure of his answer. He seemed to be internally grappling, maybe for the first time, with the logic of his own prejudices. I just think some things don't mix," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. Leah took a deep breath. She knew she was about to enter delicate territory, but that's exactly why she was there. "I served our country," she began, her voice calm. "Just like many others. That gives me the same right to be here as anyone else. But I'm not here to claim my place with anger, David. I'm here because I believe we can be better than this." David stayed silent, the discomfort evident on his face. For the first time, he seemed to be really listening. Leah continued, her tone calm but firm. "I don't need you to like me or agree with my choices or my skin color. What I do expect, however, is respect. And it's something I learned during all the years I served in the armed forces. Respect isn't given based on looks or prejudices. It's earned through our actions and how we treat others." David seemed to be processing her words. He didn't respond immediately, but Leah could see a change in his face, a reflection of his internal struggle. He wasn't ready to admit it, but something had shifted. This was the first spark of transformation. The silence between them was long, but not empty. It was a silence that carried the weight of years of prejudice slowly being challenged. The flight continued, but David's journey was just beginning. Leah knew she had planted a seed of change. The next step was up to him. The silence between Leah and David continued, like a fragile bridge being built between them. The constant hum of the airplane engine filled the space, but the words spoken moments before still echoed in David's mind. He couldn't ignore the quiet strength with which Leah had spoken. It stirred something in him, making him rethink his beliefs in a way he wasn't ready to admit. David had always been proud of his background. He grew up in a traditional family where success was measured by social status and the connections made throughout life. He believed in an orderly world where everyone knew their place. The idea that a woman like Leah, not just because she was black, but also because she held a prominent position in the armed forces, could share the same space as him in first class, challenged his worldview. As he stared ahead, his hands still holding the glass of water he barely touched, Leah's simple and direct words continued to pierce through the armor of prejudices he carried. The pride that kept him standing now began to feel heavy, as if it were slowly turning into a burden hard to bear. Leah, on her part, didn't expect an immediate change. She knew from experience that people didn't change overnight. Prejudice was something deeply rooted, often passed down from generation to generation. She had learned to deal with it calmly and strategically, never allowing others' hatred to lead her to react similarly. But there was something about David that made her believe that, despite his resistance, he was at a breaking point. Something inside him was crumbling. "You know," Leah began, breaking the silence, "I've faced many situations like this. Prejudice is one of those things that never completely disappears. It just changes shape, adapts, hides behind new excuses. But one thing I've learned is that it never goes away if we don't talk about it." David glanced at Leah, surprised that she had started another conversation. He didn't know how to respond, but he didn't want to seem weak or unable to defend his beliefs either. "Maybe you're right," he murmured, as if the words were painful to say. That was a shock for Leah. Although it was a small admission, she knew it was an important step. The simple fact that David had acknowledged the possibility of being wrong was enough for her to feel that their journey on this flight was far from over. David, realizing he had said something he wasn't used to saying, turned his gaze to the window, as if the world outside could provide the answers he was looking for. Leah watched him patiently. She knew the next words had to be chosen carefully. "We all carry baggage," Leah continued, her voice soft but firm. "Some are more visible, others are buried so deeply that even we can't see them. But the truth is, if we don't confront what's inside us, we end up perpetuating what we've been taught without questioning it." David didn't respond immediately. He clasped his hands in his lap, uncomfortable. The phrase "perpetuating what we were taught" echoed in his mind. He had grown up believing his worldview was right, that there was a natural order to things. Questioning it felt like dismantling the very foundations of who he was. But Leah had planted something in his mind that he couldn't ignore anymore. "I never thought about it that way," David finally admitted, not looking at her. His words came out hesitant, but they were honest. Leah gave a small smile, sensing she had managed to crack a small part of the wall of pride David had built around himself. "I know it's not easy," she said. "Believing in something your whole life and then suddenly being challenged to see things differently can be scary. But that's where growth happens." David stayed silent, taking in every word. For the first time, he found himself confronted with the possibility that he might be wrong, that maybe his beliefs weren't as unquestionable as he thought. The discomfort was growing, but there was also a relief in no longer needing to maintain the facade of superiority. Leah didn't push. She knew delicate conversations like these required patience. She turned her attention back to the book she had brought, allowing the silence to settle around them again. But this time, the silence was different. It wasn't loaded with hostility or tension anymore. It was a thoughtful, almost peaceful silence. David glanced at Leah from the corner of his eye, seeing her differently. For the first time, he saw beyond the military uniform, beyond the color of her skin. He saw a person, a soul full of experiences and wisdom. And more importantly, he saw someone who refused to let herself be defined by others' prejudice. As the flight continued, David's discomfort slowly began to shift into a sense of curiosity. He still clung to his pride, But there was something inside him that wanted to understand more about Leah, about her journey, about how she could face so much prejudice with such grace and resilience. Leah, for her part, remained calm, knowing that sometimes silence was the best teacher. She had said what needed to be said, and now it was up to David to reflect and decide what he would do with this new perspective. The plane soared through the skies, but the real journey was happening inside David. He wasn't ready to admit it out loud yet, but something within him was starting to change. For the first time, he was questioning his own convictions. And Leah knew that if he was willing to question, then he was ready to start transforming. Time on the flight seemed to stretch out, and while the physical space between Leah and David stayed the same, internally, something was beginning to shift. David was quiet, but his silence was no longer one of rejection or disdain. There was an internal battle being fought, a struggle between the man he thought he was and the man he could become. He glanced at Leah now and then, trying to understand how someone could respond with such calm and dignity to a situation that would have deeply unsettled him if the roles were reversed. She was a soldier, a black woman in a society that still bore the scars of racism and inequality, and yet she was strong, balanced. There was a serenity about her that disarmed him. David had never considered himself a bad person. To him, his beliefs were part of a worldview that had been shaped since childhood. He believed people had their place, and that some were more deserving than others. He had worked hard to get to where he was, and didn't like the idea that others, especially those he saw as outside his social circle, could share in his privileges without going through the same struggles. But as the minutes passed, David began to realize that maybe he wasn't seeing the full picture. Leah wasn't someone who had been handed anything. Like him, she had fought and earned her place in the world. The only difference was that her battle had been against forces much bigger than anything he had ever faced. These thoughts consumed him, and he began to feel a growing restlessness. He was uncomfortable in his own skin, as if the certainties that had always supported him were crumbling. His mind kept returning to Leah's words, "If we don't confront what's inside us, we end up perpetuating what we were taught." It was a truth he wasn't ready to accept, but one that somehow was taking root within him. Leah, on the other hand, was deeply aware of what was happening around her. Even though there were no more words exchanged, she could feel the change in the air. She knew she had planted a seed in David, but she also knew he still needed time to process it. Change, she had learned over the years, was something that happened slowly, from the inside out. The pilot announced that they were a few hours away from their final destination, but for David, the journey seemed to be just beginning. He was in unfamiliar territory, where his beliefs were being challenged, and he didn't know how to react. All his life, he had prided himself on being firm in his convictions. But now, for the first time, he was being forced to reevaluate who he was and what he stood for. "You seem far away, lost in thought," Leah observed with a gentle tone, not forcing a response. She knew there was a fine line between direct confrontation and encouraging introspection. David looked at her, hesitant, but then finally spoke. I never thought someone like you could be like this. I mean, not with such calmness, not with such strength," he said, his voice filled with vulnerability. He was no longer hiding behind pride or prejudice. For the first time, he was being honest with himself and with Leah. Leah smiled gently, recognizing the importance of that moment. "I understand what you mean," she replied empathetically. "But the truth is, strength doesn't come from a place of hate or resentment. If I let prejudice consume me, it would have won. My strength comes from knowing who I am and never letting others' opinions define my worth." David pondered those words. They hit him in a profound way. He had always believed that strength was something earned by overcoming others, by imposing oneself on them. But Leah was talking about a completely different kind of strength. One that came from within, from facing internal challenges, from fighting against one's own prejudices and limitations. "Do you really believe people can change?" he asked, his voice now softer, almost a whisper. Leah looked directly at him, her eyes reflecting the truth of her words. "I believe we all have the capacity to change if we're willing to, but change isn't something that happens overnight. It takes courage to confront our shadows, to recognize our mistakes, and hardest of all, to seek forgiveness from ourselves and from others. David felt small in the face of the depth of those words. He had never thought of asking for forgiveness for his attitudes or beliefs. To him, forgiveness was something sought only when an obvious, clear mistake was made. But now he was beginning to see that his prejudices, even silent ones, were deep errors he had carried for years without ever questioning them. The plane went through a light turbulence, and David gripped the armrests, as if holding on to the last sense of control he still had. The physical discomfort matched the emotional turmoil growing inside him. Leah, noticing the moment, placed her hand over his in a subtle but meaningful gesture. "It's okay," she said in a reassuring tone. "Sometimes what we fear the most is the change that's already happening within us." David, surprisingly, didn't pull his hand away. He looked at Leah and for the first time saw in her not just a soldier, not just a black woman challenging his beliefs, but someone who was there to help him face his own demons. There was a connection he could no longer ignore. He felt something he had never experienced before, a mix of respect, admiration, and above all, humility. As the plane moved toward its destination, David began to realize that his journey wouldn't be measured by physical distance, but by how much he was willing to change. And Leah, with her firm and empathetic presence, was becoming the unexpected guide of this transformation. Let's have some fun with those who only read the comments. Write "hot dog" in the comments. Only those who make it this far will understand. And now let's continue the story. As the flight progressed, Leah sensed that something important was about to happen. She saw David's internal struggle, the weight of his beliefs slowly crumbling, and knew he was close to a revelation that could change everything. The silence between them was no longer tense, but charged with a silent expectation, like the air before a storm. David, unable to bear the conflict within him any longer, finally spoke. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but full of restrained emotions. "You know, I never thought I'd question everything I believe. You didn't do anything except be yourself. But somehow, that forced me to face things I never wanted to see." Leah looked at him, her calm gaze encouraging him to continue. She knew that sometimes people just needed a safe space to speak their truth, and she was willing to be that space for him. David took a deep breath, as if gathering his courage. "I grew up in a home where certain things were just accepted as truth. My father, my grandparents, they all taught me that, well, that people like you should stay in their place. We weren't openly racist, at least not in a way you'd call obvious, but there was this sense of superiority that was always there. It was like we were different, better." He paused, looking down the aisle of the plane, where others continued their lives, unaware of the transformation happening between him and Leah. "I was taught to believe that my success was because of my hard work, and anyone not at my level just hadn't tried hard enough. I believed that for so long." David turned to Leah, his expression filled with shame. "But now, seeing you here, hearing your story, I realize it wasn't that simple. You've worked just as hard as me, if not harder, and faced challenges I can't even imagine. So why do I still feel like I'm better? It's wrong, I know it is, but it feels like it's part of me." Leah remained calm, though she could see the emotional weight David was carrying. She had heard confessions like this before, but something about his sincerity touched her in a different way. There was a vulnerability in his words that showed he genuinely wanted to change, that he was fighting against years of conditioning. She took a deep breath before responding, knowing that her next words could make all the difference. "David, it's normal to feel that way. What you're describing is something many people go through, even if they don't want to admit it. We grow up in environments that shape our beliefs, often without realizing it. The issue isn't whether those beliefs existed, but what we do once we recognize them." David frowned slightly, as if trying to grasp what she meant. Leah continued, her voice soft but firm. "Change is hard, especially when we're confronted with something that's been part of us for so long. But recognizing there's something wrong is the first step. From there, it's up to you to decide if you want to keep holding on to those beliefs, or if you're ready to unlearn what you were taught." David nodded slowly, processing every word. He had always thought his beliefs were an intrinsic part of who he was, but now he saw that maybe there was a choice. He could continue being the man his parents and grandparents had shaped, or he could open himself up to a new way of seeing the world. But there was something deeper, something he needed to say, something that had been weighing on him since Leah sat beside him. He took another deep breath, feeling the weight of what he was about to reveal. I had a brother, he began, his voice faltering for a moment. Leah immediately noticed the change in his tone and prepared herself to hear what was coming next. He died in combat in Afghanistan. Leah felt a tightening in her chest. She knew what it was like to lose comrades in arms, people who became family on the front lines. The pain of loss in battle was something that transcended race or color, and she knew that behind David's words was a wound that hadn't yet healed. He was my hero, you know? I always looked up to him as the example of everything I should be. He was brave, strong, never complained. But when he died, something in me changed. I started getting angry at everything and everyone, and that anger turned into prejudice. I blamed others, anyone who was different from me, for everything I had lost. Leah nodded, deeply understanding what he was trying to express. Grief often pushes us into dark places, where we try to find someone or something to blame, when really we're just struggling to cope with our own pain. I shut down, he continued. I started seeing the world in terms of us versus them. And when I saw you sit down here, in that moment, it was like all that old anger came rushing back. It wasn't fair, I know, but it's what I felt. Leah, now with tears in her eyes, placed a comforting hand on David's arm. I'm so sorry for your loss, David. No family should go through that. But know that the prejudice you developed was your way of dealing with something that seemed unbearable. It's not your fault for feeling that way, but it is your responsibility to change it. David looked at her, his eyes watery, feeling a connection he never imagined he could have with someone like Leah. He had reached the point of a profound revelation, and with that, felt something inside him finally starting to heal. That moment between them wasn't just about a white man recognizing his prejudice towards a black woman. It was about two souls who, through pain and understanding, were healing each other. Leah had given David the opportunity to confront his shadows, and David, in turn, was opening up to a truth he had ignored for so long. The plane continued its journey, but for David and Leah, that moment of revelation had created something much bigger, something that would change their lives forever. After that deep conversation, something changed between Leah and David. The air around them seemed lighter, though there was still an underlying current of unresolved emotions. David was silent, clearly processing everything he had shared with Leah. He felt exposed, vulnerable, but at the same time, a sense of relief began to set in. For the first time, he was facing the feelings and beliefs that had kept him imprisoned for so long. Leah, on the other hand, remained silent beside him, giving him the space he needed to digest everything. She knew that deep internal changes didn't happen overnight. They were painful processes, often triggered by difficult moments like this one. But she also knew that something significant was about to happen. The silence between them was interrupted when the flight attendant came down the aisle, offering meals to the first-class passengers. When he reached Leah's seat, he handed her the plate with a friendly smile, unaware of the previous tension between her and David. David watched the interaction, and at that moment, it was as if he had an epiphany. The normality with which Leah was treated by the flight attendant contrasted with how he had reacted to her at the beginning of the flight. He realized, in a visceral way, how prejudice had been an artificial construct of his own mind, something he had fed for so long without even realizing it. He looked at Leah, who was beginning to eat, and felt an overwhelming weight of guilt. How could he have been so blind? How could he have allowed years of prejudice to cloud his view of someone who was clearly an extraordinary person? He knew an apology was the least he could offer, but he also knew it needed to be sincere, not just a formality. David took a deep breath, gathering courage. Leah, I need to apologize to you. Leah paused from eating and looked at him with a gentle yet inquisitive expression. She knew this moment was important for David, and she was ready to listen. I was horrible to you at the start of this flight. I judged you without even knowing you. And now, after everything we've talked about, I realize how wrong I was. He paused, struggling with the emotions that threatened to overflow. There's no excuse for what I did, and I'm sorry. I'm ashamed of how I acted, and I hope, somehow, you can forgive me. Leah felt the sincerity in his words and for a moment was transported back to all the times in her life when she faced prejudice and discrimination. Each of those experiences had left a mark on her, but also made her stronger. However, hearing such a sincere apology was rare. Often, the people who treated her disrespectfully never acknowledged their mistakes, let alone asked for forgiveness. She set her fork aside and looked deeply into David's eyes. "I believe in change, David. We all make mistakes, but what matters is what we do afterward. I accept your apology, but I want you to know that true forgiveness comes with actions. What you do from now on is what really matters." Leah's words touched David deeply. She wasn't condemning him, but she also wasn't accepting a simple, empty apology. She was challenging him to be better, to act according to the change he promised. This was something he would never have expected from someone he had treated with such disrespect. "You're right," David responded, feeling the seriousness of the moment. "Words are easy. I'll prove that I'm changing, not just for you, but for myself. I need to be a better person." Leah nodded, satisfied with David's response. Change isn't easy, but it's possible. The important thing is that you're willing to take the next steps. David took a deep breath, feeling a new sense of purpose. For the first time in a long while, he felt capable of more than just going through the motions of his life. He realized that this encounter with Leah had been a turning point, a chance to rewrite his story of prejudice and bitterness. The flight continued, but the atmosphere around them felt transformed. What had started as a simple, casual encounter had turned into something much deeper and more meaningful. David looked out the airplane window, contemplating the vast, endless sky, and felt that somehow his own life was also expanding. He was beginning to see the world in a new way, all thanks to the woman sitting beside him. Leah returned to eating her meal, while David reflected on everything that had happened. He knew the journey was only just beginning, but now, for the first time in a long time, he was ready to face the challenge of changing. Time passed quickly as they both became absorbed in their thoughts, and soon the flight attendant came back with the drink cart. This time, without hesitation, David offered to get something for Leah. "Would you like something to drink?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine respect. Leah smiled, recognizing the small act of courtesy as another sign of change. "Water, please," she replied, accepting the offer. As David handed her the water, he felt a sense of peace and gratitude growing inside him. It was a small action, but for him, it represented a big step toward the person he wanted to become. Leah, on the other hand, felt proud to have been a catalyst for David's transformation. She knew not everyone would have responded the way he did, and that filled her with hope. Hope that, even in a world full of prejudice and division, people could still change if they were willing to. The flight continued, and while the physical journey was nearing its end, the emotional and spiritual journey between Leah and David was just beginning. Both knew that once the plane landed, nothing would ever be the same. As the plane began its descent, the soft cabin lights reflected the glow of the setting sun through the windows. The atmosphere was calm, but inside Leah, a wave of emotions swirled. Returning home was always a special moment, but this time it felt different, more significant. She knew she was about to reunite with her family, and that brought a mix of joy and relief. At the same time, she couldn't stop thinking about David and everything that had happened during the flight. David, sitting beside her, was also lost in thought. He had made a promise to himself that he would try to be a better person, but he knew this was just the first of many steps in his journey. As the plane descended smoothly, he felt both nervous and determined to keep his word. Leah thought about her family as the city skyline began to appear on the horizon. Her father, a military veteran, had always inspired her to pursue a career in the armed forces, teaching her the importance of honor, courage, and integrity. Her mother, with her loving heart and wise advice, was the pillar of the family. Since childhood, Leah had known she could always count on her parents to support her in every moment. And now, after months of service, she felt eager to receive that warm embrace that always made her feel safe and protected. Every time she returned home, Leah experienced the comforting feeling of being welcomed, a sharp contrast to the challenges she faced in the outside world. Her parents' home, though modest, was a place of unconditional love, a sanctuary where she always found comfort and strength. To Leah, that home represented more than just a physical space. It was a symbol of belonging, safety, and deep roots that connected her to her identity. As the plane touched down, Leah's heart began to race. She remembered her mother's words before leaving on this mission. Whenever you need rest, whenever the world out there feels too tough, remember that home will always be here for you. And that was exactly what she felt, a deep longing to return to the warmth of home and the arms of her family. David, watching Leah from the corner of his eye, noticed the subtle shift in her expression. He could see the mix of emotions on her face, and suddenly, he felt compelled to ask, "Are you excited to see your family again?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. Leah smiled softly, her eyes shining. "A lot. Being away from them is never easy, but coming home, it's always something I look forward to with so much joy. My parents are my foundation, my dad was also in the military, and my mom, well, she's the heart of the family." David nodded, thinking about his own roots. He hadn't seen his family in a while, but unlike Leah, he didn't have such a close relationship. His own choices and the prejudices he held had created an emotional distance between him and his loved ones. He began to wonder if maybe there was an opportunity to rebuild those connections. "It must be nice to have that sense of home," he said, his voice slightly melancholic. "Unfortunately, I don't have that. I've drifted away from my family over the years, mainly because of my choices, or maybe because of my failings." Leah looked at him with understanding. She knew what it was like to feel disconnected from the world around her, but she also knew the power that reconciliation and forgiveness could have. "It's never too late to rebuild, David. Sometimes all people need is a gesture, a phone call, an unexpected visit, a sincere conversation. It can be hard, but it's worth it." David was silent for a few moments, pondering her words. He thought about his own father, a stern man who had tried for so long to instill values that David had rejected. He had spent so much time harboring resentments that now, sitting next to Leah, he realized how much it had distanced him from the things that truly mattered. When the plane finally stopped at the gate, Leah looked at David and gave him an encouraging smile. "I believe you can do it if you really want to." David nodded, grateful for those words. "Thank you, Leah. Your words have really helped me see things differently." Leah grabbed her carry-on bag and began walking towards the exit. David followed in silence, both immersed in their own thoughts. When they finally reached the terminal, Leah paused for a moment, looking around as she searched for her family. And then she saw them. Her father, in his impeccable uniform, standing proudly next to her mother, who held a handmade sign that read, "Welcome back, our hero." Leah's heart warmed instantly. Tears filled her eyes as she ran towards them, feeling her mother's warm arms envelop her. Her father hugged her right after, and in that moment, Leah felt complete. The outside world might be full of challenges, prejudices, and hardships. But here, with her family, she was just Leah. Daughter, sister, soldier. She was loved, accepted, and protected. David, watching from a distance, was touched by the scene. He saw in Leah a woman who, despite facing prejudices and difficulties, still had a place of love and safety to return to. And that inspired him deeply. When Leah turned to say goodbye to David, he gave a shy wave, still absorbing everything. "Good luck, Leah," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "And thank you for everything." Leah smiled. "Take care, David, and never forget, the power to change is in your hands." With those words, Leah walked off with her family, leaving David to reflect on his own journey. The sense of home and family that Leah had just experienced was something he now longed for himself. And for the first time in a long time, he believed it was possible. With her family by her side, Leah walked through the airport and back home, feeling complete and at peace. The feeling of being surrounded by those who loved her unconditionally was a balm for the invisible wounds that the outside world, with all its prejudices and hardships, had caused. At the same time, something about that experience on the plane still lingered with her. Not the act of discrimination, but what had followed. David's regretful look, the beginning of his transformation, left Leah hopeful that he could truly change. As she left the airport, Leah reflected on everything that had happened. She knew that prejudice wouldn't disappear overnight, but she also knew that every small act of empathy and understanding mattered. Her encounter with David proved that. A moment of hostility and discrimination had turned into an opportunity for redemption and growth. not just for him, but also for her. Leah had chosen compassion, and by doing so, had planted a seed of change in David's heart. A few days later, while at home enjoying time with her family, Leah received an unexpected message on her phone. It was from an unknown number. When she opened it, she was surprised to see it was from David. He had sent a long message expressing his deep gratitude. David mentioned that his experience on the plane had made him reflect a lot on his life and his actions. He had talked to his own family, shared his mistakes with them, and asked for forgiveness. It was a tough process, he admitted, but Leah was right. It was never too late to rebuild. David also told Leah that since that experience, he had decided to get involved in initiatives promoting equality and understanding between people of different backgrounds. He wanted, in some way, to make up for the mistakes he had made in the past, and the inspiration for that came from the example Leah had set on that plane. He ended the message by saying she had changed his life in a way he could never have imagined. Leah smiled as she read the message, feeling a comforting warmth spread through her chest. This was exactly what she had hoped for, that her actions, though small, would have a positive impact on the world around her. She knew David still had a long way to go, but the simple fact that he had taken the first steps was already a reason to celebrate. Time passed, and little by little, Leah returned to her normal routine. But the experience on that flight and the unexpected connection with David never left her mind. She knew life was full of challenges and that she wouldn't always see the fruits of her actions right away. But Leah also deeply believed that just as a small flame can ignite a fire, a small act of kindness and compassion can spark great changes. One quiet afternoon, while Leah was in her garden with her mother, enjoying the gentle breeze, her mother remarked how Leah had always been a light in dark times. "You've always had this ability to turn situations around, Leah. Even when you were a child, you were always the one who brought peace, who saw the best in people. I know the world out there can be cruel, but you never let that change who you are. And that's a gift." Leah smiled at her mother's words, feeling deeply grateful for having grown up in such a loving and supportive environment. The world could be a harsh place, but as her mother had said, Leah had always tried to keep her light shining, even in the toughest circumstances. Later that same day, as Leah reflected on her journey so far, she realized how much she had grown as a person. Every challenge she faced, every judgmental look, every hurtful comment, all of it had shaped her, but none of it had broken her. Instead, those experiences had made her stronger, more compassionate, and more determined to make a difference, no matter how small. Leah knew that many people were still facing the same prejudices she had experienced on that plane. But she also knew that just as she had helped change David's mindset, she could continue to inspire change by living her truth and treating everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of their attitudes. That night, as she lay in bed, Leah looked out her bedroom window and saw the stars shining in the dark sky. She felt grateful for everything, her family, her journey, and even the challenges she had faced, for they had taught her the true value of empathy, forgiveness, and transformation. More than ever, Leah was convinced that change was possible. And even though it was a long and difficult road, she was willing to keep walking it. The future was uncertain, but Leah knew that as long as she kept her heart open and her light shining, she would always find a way to overcome adversity and make a difference in the world. She smiled, closed her eyes, and fell asleep, knowing that every small act of kindness matters. And in the end, love and compassion will always prevail. As Leah reflected on her journey in the days following the incident on the plane, she realized that the impact of her experience wasn't just about her and David, but also about the people around her. The stories of change, empathy, and overcoming obstacles began to spread among her friends and coworkers, sparking deep and meaningful conversations. What had started as a challenging situation was turning into a movement of understanding and acceptance. Leah decided it was time to share her experience more broadly. She began getting involved in lectures and workshops about diversity and inclusion at her military base. The first event was a surprising success. She saw an audience full of curious and engaged faces, ready to hear her story and discuss the prejudice that unfortunately still existed in the armed forces and society. As she shared her experience, Leah not only talked about the incident with David, but also about the power of compassion and the importance of confronting prejudice with love and understanding. What we do every day with small actions can have a monumental impact, she said, with a sincerity that resonated in the room. It's not just about changing one person's mindset, but about creating a space where everyone can feel safe and respected. The reactions she received were moving. Many soldiers, who had previously felt disconnected from the conversation about prejudice and discrimination, began to open up and share their own stories. They revealed moments when they felt they could have acted differently or reflected on their attitudes. The dialogue that emerged in that environment was proof that compassion was indeed a powerful force. One of the most impactful stories came from a colleague of Leah's who had struggled with internal prejudices throughout her career. She was on a combat mission when she made a decision that had painful consequences. "I let my prejudices guide me," she admitted, with tears in her eyes. "I learned the hard way that our differences don't define our worth. What you did with David inspired me to confront my own demons." These exchanges created a safe space where vulnerability was not only allowed, but encouraged. Leah felt moved to realize that her words were making a difference. The event turned into a journey of healing, where each person there committed to being more aware of their own prejudices and to act with more empathy. Leah and David's story was also shared in a local magazine article, which explored the impact of Leah's experience on her military community. The article not only highlighted the discrimination Leah faced, but also how she became a voice for change. The response was huge, generating a wave of positive comments and motivating more people to join the fight against prejudice. Leah's project began to take shape with support from her base and the community. Together, they created a mentorship program aimed at educating new recruits about diversity, inclusion, and the importance of empathy. The program not only promoted acceptance, but also encouraged soldiers to share their personal stories, creating a space for mutual learning. Over time, Leah realized that change didn't happen overnight, but with each small step, each conversation, and each heart that opened up, hope grew. She knew her work was just beginning, but seeing the transformation happening around her, she felt she was exactly where she needed to be. Through her journey, Leah discovered that even in a world full of challenges, love and compassion have the power to heal. Every small act of kindness can become a catalyst for significant change, and every story of overcoming can inspire others to join the cause. At the end of that cycle, Leah was more empowered than ever. Her determination to promote understanding and unity was unwavering, and she was ready to fight prejudice with all her strength. The most important lesson she learned was that true strength lies in the ability to love and accept others, even in the face of adversity. Looking to the future, Leah knew there would still be challenges to face, but there was also a growing light of hope. The change she had helped create was just beginning, and with each new day, there was the promise of a fairer and more welcoming world. And so, Leah continued her journey, not just as a soldier, but as an advocate for empathy and compassion, determined to turn every challenge into an opportunity to create a positive impact. Her and David's story was a powerful reminder that everyone has the potential to change, and that each of us, no matter how small, can make a difference. After Leah's lecture at the military base, something unexpected happened. David, the man who had once denied her a first-class seat because of prejudice, decided he wanted to reconnect. He remembered Leah's words, which had reverberated in his mind after the incident. That brief conversation on the plane, although tense, had become a point of reflection in his life. He hesitated, but finally gathered the courage and sent a message to Leah through the messaging app. It was a simple greeting. "Hi, Leah. I hope you're doing well. I'd like to talk a little more about what you shared at the event." When Leah received the message, she felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, she was intrigued. On the other, a small voice inside her wondered if this contact was just an attempt to redeem himself. However, she decided to give him a chance and replied, "Hi, David. I'm doing well, thank you. It's good to hear from you. What would you like to talk about?" The conversation flowed more naturally than expected. David opened up about his insecurities, his past, and how much he had reflected on his actions. Leah, in turn, shared more about her experience in the military and how she dealt with prejudice. The messages quickly became more personal and deep, covering everything from their hobbies to their aspirations. They discovered each other on a level they never imagined possible. Both were surprised by the connection they were forming. David talked about his love for photography and how he always wanted to capture the beauty of the world around him. Leah revealed her interest in literature, especially books that explored themes of justice and equality. "Reading always helps me better understand other people's experiences," Leah said. The exchange of messages became a daily habit. They looked forward to waking up, knowing they had each other to share their thoughts and experiences with. What started as a way for David to redeem himself had evolved into something deeper, where they became true friends. There was a lightness in the messages, a growing curiosity to learn more about each other. After a few weeks of chatting, David finally mustered up the courage to suggest a meeting. "Leah, I'd like to know if you'd be willing to meet in person. Maybe we could go to a cafe? What do you think?" Leah hesitated for a moment, but then excitement took over. "I think that's a great idea, David. How about we meet on Saturday?" The day of the meeting arrived, and Leah was feeling nervous. She chose a simple but elegant blouse and jeans that made her feel confident. As she arrived at the cafe, her nerves were on edge, but she took a deep breath and reminded herself that no matter what happened, the connection she had formed with David was special. David was already waiting for her, a bit nervous, but with a genuine smile on his face. As soon as Leah saw him, the tension she felt faded. "Hi, Leah. You look amazing," he said, and his sincerity made her feel at ease. They talked for hours, laughing and sharing stories from their lives. David apologized again for his past behavior, and this time, Leah felt he had truly learned something from the experience. "You really made me think, Leah. Since the day we talked on the plane, I've changed my perspective," he confessed. The conversation flowed easily, and Leah realized she was starting to like David more and more. There was something captivating about him, not just because of his journey of transformation, but because he was becoming more authentic and vulnerable. In the months that followed, their relationship developed. They began meeting regularly, exploring new places, sharing hobbies, and diving into conversations that grew deeper and deeper. The digital connection they had created transformed into something real and tangible. David, who had once been a stranger who made a mistake, was now becoming a dear partner to Leah. She thought back to all the conversations they had shared and how hard he had worked to be a better person. The path they had both walked had become a strong bond between them, a symbol of mutual growth and overcoming challenges. With each meeting, Leah felt more secure in her decision to give David a chance. There was something beautiful about the way they supported and challenged each other to be better. David inspired her to keep fighting for a more just world, while Leah showed David the power of empathy and compassion. Finally, on a clear night under the stars, David looked into Leah's eyes and said, "You know, I never imagined my life would change so much after meeting you. You've taught me the true meaning of compassion and respect. I really want to keep building this together." Leah smiled, her heart warmed by his words. "I feel the same way, David. That means a lot to me." And so, with the power of compassion and change, Leah and David began writing a new story together, a story of love, growth, and understanding, where each day was an opportunity to grow and love more deeply. After months of meetings, laughter, and discoveries, Leah and David finally reached a point where they could no longer ignore the depth of their feelings. The connection that started with a simple exchange of messages had transformed into a strong love, nurtured by empathy, understanding, and shared experiences. They had become best friends, partners, and lovers, and now they were ready to take an even bigger step: commitment. One evening, as they walked together in a park under the soft light of dusk, David decided it was time to express everything he felt. He stopped and looked into Leah's eyes, his feelings overflowing. "Leah, I can't imagine my life without you anymore. You've shown me the beauty of compassion and strength. I want to spend the rest of my days by your side. Would you marry me?" His words left Leah speechless. Her heart raced as a smile lit up her face. "Yes, David. Yes, I will." Emotion took over, and at that moment, everything felt perfect. The park around them, with its gently falling leaves and the sky painted in pink and gold, was the ideal setting for a proposal that would change their lives forever. The following months were filled with planning, laughter, and growing love. Leah and David were determined to make their wedding a celebration of love and the journey they had shared. They wanted every detail to reflect their personalities and what they had learned from each other. The ceremony was set for a spring day when the flowers were in full bloom and the air was fresh and fragrant. Leah decided to wear a simple yet elegant dress that highlighted her natural beauty. David, on the other hand, chose a suit that reflected his style, but with a personal touch that made it unique. When the big day finally arrived, Leah was nervous, but full of anticipation. The chapel was decorated with white and green flowers, and the sunlight streamed through the windows, creating a magical atmosphere. Their friends and family were there, all smiling and full of love and support. David stood waiting, his heart pounding in his chest. As soon as Leah entered, the world around them disappeared. He watched her walk towards him, and all he could think was how beautiful she looked and how incredibly lucky he felt to have her in his life. When they finally met at the altar, time seemed to stand still. "You are the reason I believe in change, hope, and true love," David said, his eyes shining with emotion. Leah smiled, feeling every word resonate deeply within her. "And you are proof that we can all learn and grow. I'm so grateful to have you by my side." The vows they exchanged were full of sincerity and emotion. They promised to support each other through all of life's journeys, to love and respect each other, and always to fight for justice and understanding, not just between themselves, but also in the world around them. After the ceremony, the celebration continued at a nearby venue, where friends and family shared stories and laughter. The atmosphere was filled with love and joy, and Leah and David cherished every moment. Their first dance was full of laughter and tears of happiness, as friends and family cheered and applauded them. As the evening went on, David and Leah found themselves in a quieter corner of the venue. Listening to the soft music and the laughter of friends in the background, David held Leah's hand and said, "You know, I never thought life could be this beautiful. Looking at you now, by my side, makes me feel like I can conquer the world." Leah smiled, her heart warm. "I feel the same way. Together, we're stronger. This is just the beginning of our journey." And so, Leah and David began a new life together, full of dreams and hopes. The love they built became a solid foundation to face the challenges ahead. Their union was not just about two individuals becoming one, but about a collaboration of lives and experiences intertwining to create something even greater. In the following months, they explored new places, always together, always supporting each other. The trip to Italy they had always dreamed of became a reality. They got lost in cobblestone streets, sampled exotic dishes, and took photos of each other in front of historic landmarks. The joy they shared was palpable, and with each new adventure, their souls intertwined more. Besides their travels, Leah and David also began to get involved in social justice initiatives. They organized community events to promote inclusion and acceptance, carrying forward the message that had united their hearts. Every action they took was a step towards a more just world, and they were determined to leave their mark. Over time, the house they chose became a home filled with laughter, love, and dreams. They decorated each room with memories of the adventures they had shared. The walls were lined with photos of meaningful moments, from the day they met to the moment they said "I do" to each other. Life was far from perfect, but Leah and David learned to face challenges together, supporting one another through every situation. They became not just a couple, but a team that deeply understood each other. And so, as they looked toward the future, Leah and David were ready to take on any challenge, knowing that together they could transform the world around them. The love that started with an act of prejudice grew into an inspiring story of overcoming obstacles, compassion, and an unshakable commitment to making a difference, not only in their own lives, but in the lives of everyone around them. Leah and David's journey teaches us that love and understanding have the power to overcome prejudice and create meaningful change in our lives. Through their story, we're reminded that no matter what adversities we face, empathy and human connection are key to transformation. Now, we have a question for you. Have you ever faced prejudice or injustice in your life? We'd love to hear your stories. Share your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to see more videos like this one.